Infinity board, baby. We back. All hail Babylon. Babylon, Babylon, Babylon. All they do is Babylon. It's time to do it. Abortion. Never was one to involve myself in politics or any of these emotionally charged debates, but this is an invariant structural pattern. So the more I go into different fields and debates and worldviews, it just appears in the exact same way over and over again. So this was a super easy one to do, actually. And I think the best way to illustrate before I get into abortion is this whole idea of an elimination constraint argument. This isn't something new. This is something that's been around for forever. It's different than coming up with propositions and definitions, having some conclusion at the end that you're trying to reach, and then forming this, inference to get there. The way this works is eliminating all possibilities until there's one remainder, essentially. So I think a great way to illustrate that actually is looking at the final scene of 8 Mile. B Rabbit had maybe the greatest elimination argument of all time. Let's see if I can draw these guys. This will be B Rabbit. Okay. B Rabbit. And before we get to the final scene, we'll do Papa Doc. All right, so how's a rap battle work, right? Who's the judge? I mean, really? 313. Trying to expand that. Oh, I'm so rusty, guys. So rusty. There we go. 313. So this is the whole crowd, right? And essentially what we have is just like discourse, just like philosophy, just like talking to your wife. Argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, argument 4. A lot of people might think these rap guys are freestyling in these things, but they are certainly not. They might come up with stuff on the top of their head, but just to illustrate this, what I'm trying to show is how finite our thinking really is when it's constrained in categories. Category equals rap battle. All I mean about being constrained by the category is B Rabbit's not going to, be talking about recipes and what he wants to make for dinner. If he was walking through the grocery store and someone asked him that, then this box changes, right? So when you're in this type of situation, everything's constrained by this system, which is these guys are performing for the 313. They get to decide. And the goal is to basically just roast each other with these arguments. So they're pre-planned, already written. And even if they're not, I'm just trying to make it easy, but even if B Rabbit's coming up with stuff off the top of his head about Papa Doc, it's constraint to be about him in this category while knowing you're performing towards them. Because you need to earn their favor. Essentially, if people don't know about this, I mean, the crowd just goes nuts. If they cheer more for Papa Doc, then there's, a judge in the middle who just is like, okay, you win. So it's all relational, it's all comparison all the time. So the way that it works is Papa Doc goes first, let's say, and he just says all his arguments. 313 gives a certain score based on, how much they're cheering. And then, so it's going down here to them, but it's also directed at his person, right? And it's about, lyrical prowess, flow, whatever, like all subjective. And then it's B Rabbit's turn. He does the same thing, performs all these to the crowd, and then sends it at him. It's just like these conditions within this category being checked off. You have a minute time frame, whatever it is, and then it's over. So the elimination constraint, the reason I'm showing this, is then you get to Clarence. And everything changes. What happens? B Rabbit says, this doesn't even matter anymore. Get this out of here. I don't even need them. He gets to go first. Clarence actually wins the coin toss, and then he says, let that bitch go first. And Eminem is just smirking because he knows what he's about to do and that it's unbeatable, because it is, due to the constraint. B Rabbit was so smart here, so clever, that he knew what all these arguments were going to be. You're white trash, poverty, Cheddar Bob, shot himself with a gun. I took your girl. Or I guess it was the other dude who took the girl, but whatever. So obviously the whole point of a rap battle is B Rabbit's got all this beef with him. He's going to typically have these arguments just being the same sort of thing. So he ends up finding out all this dirt on him, good family home, private school, etc., etc. So without the elimination constraint, you would think Eminem goes first, and he's performing to them. Like, look at this guy. Look, he's faking. He's a fake gangster. And obviously it's directed at him, so it's hitting him. And then it's like, okay, who's better? His time's over. Now it's his turn, and then he gets to just light him up with all this stuff directed at him. Well, the balls it takes, the humility it takes, it's a savage move to know that you have the skill and the lyrical prowess and the confidence to decide you're going to make half of your performance all the things he was going to say about yourself, roasting yourself better than he could have, which has this very interesting psychological perspective on a crowd where it's like respect, Because if it's flipping the whole idea of a rap battle, you're supposed to be attacking the other person, and then they're supposed to gauge who did it better. That's the tradition, right? That's how this is constrained to be. B Rabbit breaks it in an unbeatable way because he realizes these are all the things you're going to say about me, and I already know. He gets to go first. So his first 4 arguments literally eliminate it. He's the one saying this about himself. Right? And then he still has time to do these. So two things happen. The traditional thing happens on the second half, attacking him with this, but only after he did all that, which is the sickest part, because the crowd doesn't know what's about to happen. It's just kind of like the pressure's on. What are you going to say now? He already probably said all the things you're going to say. And so when people imagine Clarence choking in this situation, it's not like he has ideas and he can't think of them. You have to imagine this situation, because this is not a metaphor that I'm showing here. This invariant pattern's encoded in our reality. So it's the way that I do discourse. It's the way I approach debate, all sorts of thinking. So Clarence gets tossed the mic. He goes first. It's over. He already canceled these out, said this. He's got the mic in his hand. He blue screens. This is what I'm trying to show, is we have a finite way of thinking. Now, Clarence, if he was even ahead of B Rabbit, would have known B Rabbit was going to do this, so he may have developed more things. But because he wasn't ahead of the game like that, these are the only things he had prepared. This was it. That's the only thing he could have said in the moment he got tossed the microphone. This is the way our reality works, is we're relationally mapping things. Once you're in the situation, you get addressed. B Rabbit's addressing him the whole time. Every time he says one of these, it crosses out in his mind. Because you know the rules are, you can't say these things now. It's not as if he's evaluating if he can still say these things. He immediately knows as it's happening. It's like, okay, I can't say that one anymore. Can't say that one. Can't say that one. Can't say that one. He runs out of thoughts, literally. When it's his turn, he almost drops the microphone, stands in front of the crowd, has to walk off. That's why I said B Rabbit crossed this out, because it had nothing to do with them. He just eliminated all possibilities for this guy to respond. That's what I'm saying, is a typical rap battle is always two guys going against one another. You go first, that guy goes second. That's the way it works. He made it so it was just him. Impossible for him to go. Impossible. And just to do a little more commentary on this, this choking experience he has, where he has to walk off stage, is completely different than the one B Rabbit had in the beginning of the movie. Because in the beginning of the movie, I don't know who he's going up against, but he has all these. And it's his turn to go and attack him. And he's so overwhelmed, almost this very sneaky sort of pride and vanity that humans have, we all have, that he wants to be great, and he knows he's great. And he also knows that it requires, he's the outlier. It requires him to do more than what everyone else does because he's the white guy or whatever. So he has all this sort of sneaky vanity that just makes him not able to pull this out. He just kind of chokes under the pressure. And then the whole movie is him evolving as a character, sort of being forced to become humble. And at that point, there's nothing to lose. Lose yourself. Mom spaghetti. So once he has nothing to lose, the people on this side took everything from him, took his girl, punked him, like everything. So at that point, it's like, fuck the crowd, fuck this guy, fuck everything they're going to say. I already know what they're going to say, and I'm better at rap than all of them. Why am I choking? Like, why am I getting nervous out here? So it goes to show that if you humble yourself, something new can happen. And, interesting enough, B Rabbit is able to, sort of just savagely rip himself about, living in a mobile home and all these sorts of things, which means he's exposing himself to this crowd and to these people saying, I don't give a shit. This is who I am. I'm proud of it. I'm not ashamed, right? Like, this is the whole transfiguration that I'm talking about. It's literally Christian theology baked into this movie is I'm allowing my shame, this weakness, by grace to become power. That's what it's trying to show. As compared to Clarence, who's hiding all those things about himself. He's embarrassed. He's a fake gangster, as B Rabbit tells him. So there you go. You can see the complete difference between the two. And so the reason I bring all this up, this elimination constraint, is because that's exactly how I approach discourse. Is I literally know what all you guys are going to say in every single debate because it's finite. It's some sort of category. Physicalism versus panpsychism, moral realism versus anti-realism is, for whatever reason, my whole life, I've just... So say we got the moral realist, anti-realist. And everyone's got their... like mind, whereas this guy, it's always a split. So this position is in response to moral realism. They disagree with that starting axiom. So what I'm trying to show here this is the only question I ask. Same meaning as my name, as it turns out. Now, I'm not saying these guys are performing for me. I'm just trying to show something else here. So in real life, these guys are actually debating, just like the rap battle. This guy goes first, this guy goes second, and they have arguments that they're making. The reason I have these circles here is because the only way you get these arguments is from this circle. And goes without saying, but this guy didn't come up with anything in this circle. And this guy didn't come up with anything in this circle, which means both guys are not coming up with anything that they're saying. They're not. they're in a constraint category. It's a meta ethics debate. Not going to talk about what recipe you're making tonight. You're not going to talk about a rap battle. And so the issue obviously is there's completely different starting positions. And the whole thing with philosophy is you have to start somewhere. These are axioms. You don't prove them to be true. You assume them to be true. And then your whole argument, the explanatory model, is trying to backtrack and justify that that's the case. That's why I draw a circle, because they're all circles, literally. And that's not even new information. It's just no one ever thought that you could step outside the debate and just watch both. That's all that's happening here is, you might think you're an independent thinker and all these things, but if you're the type of person to know about meta ethics, you're one of these sides, or you're agnostic and still not looking at it from this perspective, just kind of thinking like, oh, which side do I want to join, or which side do I like better? But this perspective that I'm talking about, who is like God, is me understanding that this whole thing is for human beings to say, this is the way it is. This is one circle with a different definition. It's literally just the negative of that. They don't think, this whole position just literally doesn't think that these arguments justify this starting place. And they're right. But because it's always in response to some positive claim, it's like, what's your position then? I just watched an anti-realist, moral realist debate last week. I'll have a post on that soon. I think it'll be sick. It's this massive like diagnosis of everything that occurred. Hour-and-a-half long debate. So it'll be good like reference material for this whole thing moving forward. Like a study sheet maybe for anyone interested in that. And I'm just going to use it for myself. But the anti-realist in that case is saying, and for anyone who doesn't know, mind-independent objective moral facts is just basically saying, normativity, what you should or should not do, murder is wrong. If all human beings changed tomorrow, woke up, and we all thought murder was right, some crazy thing happened, this whole position is saying it's still wrong. It's saying that normativity, what's right and wrong, exists in our reality somehow, some way. It's not subjectivism. It's not just something we all decide upon. It's not relativism. It's objective, because that gives it authority. Because with normativity, you're telling people what you should do. And I realize this is what you should do. And that authority needs to be grounded. So the way they ground it is by saying it's, baked into reality. Even if everyone decides it's something like murder is right, they're like, nope, murder is wrong. Because they want to hang on to that authority, that this is something you can actually condemn, right? You can have the authority to condemn a certain action. So that's what they're trying to protect. And then these guys, from a philosophical standpoint, they call these spooky objects. Because of course philosophy is about forming an inferential bridge to show how you even get here. Like, what's the logic to get you here? It's kind of just like you're just saying it, which isn't real authority. You just want the authority, so you're kind of just grounding it and then hiding it in all these little arguments. And obviously, like, this is just one of their positions. I'm not going to list them all, but that's why there's so many, arguments you can have in this system, because of all their starting frames. So this guy, this position exists to call this out, basically. To be like, no, that's a spooky object. So you just cancel that out. But now you need to instantiate some sort of claim. Like, is it just skeptical? Because that's not a good look in philosophy, to just be like a radical skeptic, which is actually what the anti-realist got accused of in this debate. What he was trying to show is that I just don't agree with this starting place. I think this, the negative of that. And so what he ends up doing, and his whole posture is almost as if he's not making a claim because he's just disputing this, but you still have to make some sort of claim. So it's, buried in psychology, basically. So what he's saying is, in a practical sense, I'll say murder is wrong, but I don't think it's normatively binding. So then he loses the ability in like actual life to really be condemning something, in the strong sense. And it's kind of just like, things start losing their meaning, it seems, with this position. So each position has their cost. It's like you're saying this is grounded, and that gives you, the authority to say that something's wrong. Makes you feel nice and safe and secure. We have this ethical principle now, but you can't actually ground it, so it has that cost. It's just a circular argument, completely stipulative, based on this right here. And then these guys are looking at them like, okay, then you explain it, and they can't either. So the problem is that both of these circles are trying to say we're the whole thing. He's not just saying I believe in this and you can believe in whatever you want. No, it's a reality claim. He's saying this position is the whole circle, which is why this position exists to combat it. But as soon as you cancel that out, you're saying this is the entire circle. And so what I'm trying to show people is in real time, these guys are speaking to each other from completely different starting positions. So they never get to the foundational disagreement. They scrape it, but then they get trapped in here. And everything in here is derivative of this. Everything in here is derivative of this. So my whole life, I've just been wondering what the fuck everyone's talking about. Obviously, I didn't even know what metaethics was until like 3 months ago. But in July is when the invariant pattern became completely revealed to me. So then I started trying to present it, and then realizing people don't know what I'm saying, I had to enter all these sorts of like discourse, and you just learn it immediately, basically, because all I do is I find the load-bearing beam, and then once you find that, it's very easy to just map these backwards. Because like I said, there's other things here. So every single one of these arguments maps back to something in here, and then you just memorize it. Because it's very easy to show that this doesn't exist, this bridge. Because this is the actual direction things are moving in. You have this axiom, and then downstream are these arguments. But in actual debate, they're trying to say that these arguments click back. It's so ridiculous. It's the wrong way. So when you're looking at it like I am, who is like God? Why do these guys think they can ground normativity? Why do these guys think that he's not making normative statements, when the whole point of debate is that you're saying you should believe in this, basically. Like in performance, that's what you're doing. So everything's undermining itself. So I just know it's ridiculous and a lie. And so when I see the actual direction is this, that's how I'm processing reality when they're saying things. But as they're saying things to each other, I see that they're trying to do this. So then I just know there's no bridge. And then it's about separating the categories from their conclusion to what they're saying. And so you memorize this real easily. I only focus on this. And so when it's my turn to speak, it's just boop, 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 boop. Because what I do is I accept every premise. When this guy's speaking to this guy, he's not even considering this. He's only saying his arguments. And then this guy is only saying his ones. They cannot talk to each other. They're split. That's why these debates never resolve. Whereas me, when it's my turn, I go, okay, I accept that, I accept that, I accept that, I accept that. But since what they're saying to me is with words, and I know there is no bridge back, then all I have to point out is that, let's say they do argument one, they're going to use a phrase, they're going to use a word that is basically pretending to get here. But it could mean two different things. And then I point out it could mean two different things. And if it's option A, they concede that they never formed the bridge. And if it's option B, they're conceding that it's circular. And there's no third option. So as soon as I present that question to them, based on that load-bearing beam, all of these just cancel out immediately. They've never been asked the question. They're like Clarence, they just blue screen. That easy. So, you get to something like the abortion debate, and let's see. So I got two sides again. So what I recognize, this is going to be me now, right? Like I'm actually in the game now. Because what I realize is when I get in the game, I don't have to do this sort of thing. I'm doing the B-Rabbit thing, accepting their premises. And it's funny, what people don't realize is when you say words, people are in response to those words. So when you look at the abortion debate, you're trying to find what I call the load-bearing beam. You're trying to find the foundational disagreement. The woman thinks she's the victim. Her body, her choice. Well, what is she being victimized for? You're not allowed to terminate the fetus. So the disagreement's very clear. It's about the classification of the fetus, not about if the woman's a victim or not yet. It's only about if the fetus is a person with moral rights or it's not. That's it. It's binary logic every single time. And because I know this whole position is bullshit, I'll just make an assertion at the start, knowing that the only way someone can respond is to deny my assertion. But they all collapse. So my assertion is very simple. It's about the conditions of intelligibility. It's about the classification of the fetus, right? So I'm saying fetus equals human biological organism. No one disputes that. And this is where it confuses people. Person. I'm saying these are the same word because I'm so narrow with my claims. I'm literally saying that the conditions of intelligibility for this word to exist, person, it's pointing back to this. This would be annoying to say. This would be an annoying thing to say all the time. So we just relabel it person. So that's all I'm saying here. And then what I recognize, it's very simply, moral rights. All persons have moral rights. And so That's my formula. There we go. Before I enter the conversation, this person's not even here yet. This is what I'm thinking. I'm a person. I'm allowed to think these things, and this could be right or wrong, right? So this whole debate again is about that is the load-bearing beam. Because if this is true, and I'm saying this is true, then any argument someone could make downstream of that is just justification for murder. Because if a fetus is a biological organism, human, and if that means person, and if all persons have moral rights, then abortion is of course murder, because abortion, just define our terms. That's simple. Abortion is obviously the termination of the fetus. That implies if you do not terminate it, this negative logic, then you're going to get to a human being with moral rights eventually. Right? Which equals dependence or development. So that's one of the categorical load-bearing beams. And when I say this to somebody in pro-choice, try to dispute it, they're already trapped, because the only thing they can say, this isn't a trick, this is just logic. So no one even disputes this. Pro-choice also agrees with that. Equals not a person, equals no moral rights, equals abortion is not murder, fetus is not a victim, woman is the victim. Transfership of victimhood before this is settled, because it's obviously still a debate. Okay. So we got these terms down here. And remember, this is all about constraint. So this debate is just, when I'm in it with somebody, this is the only place we are. Because it's very simple. It cuts out all the waste of the debate. If this is right, then their whole position is wrong. It's just binary logic. And if this position is right, then this whole position is wrong. So there's no reason to do anything else other than this. Doesn't even make sense. They're not even talking about the same thing. This person is clearly thinking this. Two different positions, right? That can't talk to each other. That's what I'm saying. Is in the normal debate, this is what each person's thinking. So they're already coming from the stance of it's not a human life. So everything that you're saying is an attack on me. And this person's saying it is a human life. So everything you're saying is an attack on the fetus. And they just talk around each other. Two different definitions to start, two different realities, two different metaphysics. It's crazy. It's like, no wonder these people can't talk to each other. And remember, I am saying I'm asserting something here, right? So this is a personhood. And I'm saying the fetus belongs in here. These circles are categories, right? Categories. All about categories. So like I said, most debates are going to have this pro-lifer is going to have, arguments, and the pro-choicer is going to have arguments. But I don't do that. What people just do not seem to realize is this. New category. Oops. I'm so rusty with this shit. So they're trying to do this. And this means burden of proof. Negative logic. Inferential bridge. Draw me the circle. This doesn't become true in reality. Not a person. Not a person with moral rights. Unless you can actually show this bridge that removes the fetus from this personhood category and brings it into here. Because the only way the word fetus is intelligible to even say it's not what it is. So you're not denying this. You're trying to say this. This is the whole hinge. Or maybe you're thinking as a pro-choicer, it's like, no, I'm saying this. But this comes after this. So the battle's right here. Which usually gets thrown into this garbage based on two different circles. but it's here. This is just the way this word is intelligible. So if you say it's not, you need to show why you can get it out of this category. Because I assert this, that it's just this, that this doesn't exist, is what I say. And we're here. So the only thing a pro-abortion person can say in response to me, it's like I said, everyone's got their arguments ready to go. So it's so easy to memorize. After all the variations, you realize it's just the same category over and over again. Remember when I wrote that earlier? Down here? Because if you don't terminate, it will eventually gain consciousness. So then, of course, one of their arguments is not yet conscious. Because it's all about not. And another aspect of this, again, we're just at the foundational disagreement. Abortion equals termination of the fetus. Implies dependent. My body, my choice. So that becomes another one. That's pretty much it. I forgot I actually wrote some of this stuff down earlier. So these are the common arguments for let's see. Oh. So there's all linked, right? Shittiest arrows ever. It's pissing me off. Nope. And there's one more. I mean, everything's pretty much development dependency, but right action's the other one, or right exception. This is basically people saying like, So their whole argument for not a person, this negative logic, puts the entire burden of proof on you, is these two only, really. Because that comes down to our load-bearing beam, not a person with moral rights. Whereas this exception one is them trying to get around this and saying, no, it's a person. Its moral rights, though, just aren't the same because it's dependent on the woman. But, just put it in its own circle, because what they're actually trying to say, it's even worse, is that the fetus is alive in a sentient way where these consciousness arguments aren't coming into play in here. This whole cannot survive on its own thing, not coming into play here. It's understanding that it's a human being that should normally have moral rights, but because no right to another's body, as if it's like this full-grown person who's like taking over the woman, like some monster. Horrible ethics. Disgusting. So yeah, I mean, you can see how their arguments are all nots. Cannot survive on its own. Not autonomous. Not independent. Is not separately sustainable. Not conscious enough. Not rational. Not self-aware. Not. What people don't understand is a not claim is a positive claim. You're making a claim on reality. And the only way you can make a not claim is if it already is, which is why my assertion is correct. This is the starting base. This right here is reality. That's it. That's all reality is. This doesn't exist, and I'll show you in a second. But this I cannot make more clear. Burden of proof. When you make a negative claim, you're making a positive claim. I'm saying something is not something. So you have to show an inference to get there. And what no one realizes is this category. It exists in here. Already, you're trying to remove it from its source and place it in a not source based on these things. But don't forget the category it's moving from. So when I assert this, I go first in the debate, let's say. I'm not doing anything like this. And my assertion is not like this. Because in this situation, I look at both of these as bullshit. Whereas in this one, like, neither of these sides are right. Like, Jesus Christ is the truth, which is why neither of these sides can figure it out. Because this is about ethics, right? So it's Jesus. What everyone seems to forget in this debate is that this right here, this whole thing, isn't something I came up with. This is nothing new. Logic. Shared rules. That's what I'm using. Only. So I'll start by saying this, or I'll ask for their argument. It's always going to be a not claim, right? And instead of firing back with my own arguments, I just go, like, let's say, person says, not conscious enough. That's in the category of development. Not self-aware yet. Let's do this one. Not self-aware. So they're saying it's not self-aware, so that forms this category. That's why I'm able to go here and take it out, right? They're going the wrong way. And instead of just arguing against them and not accepting their premise, because that's how it spins around, I go, okay, it's not self-aware. You want to take this fetus out of this category and throw it over here by saying that. But what we need to remember here is we're talking about the classification of the fetus. What we're really talking about is killing a human biological organism. Terminating, whatever you want to say. This is the most accurate way of saying it. Simply because nobody disputes this on either side. So, I mean, you want to call it termination, killing, whatever you want to call it. But the point is, since I'm only using logic and understand they have to form the inference, this is why it's an elimination argument. Let's see. I'm trying to say this. Not self-aware, and that's going to boop, move it out. I just do, it's so simple. I just do this. I go, okay, you said it's not self-aware. I accept that it's not self-aware. Now, before we move it out of the category, let's now take your general principle of not self-aware for the category of personhood and apply it to the category of killing a human biological organism. So now apply that principle across the board. So simple. So simple. That's the question. Because this is the category. You're trying to say, I know you're trying to say that this is okay. That's the whole point. You're trying to say, doing this and this is fine because the fetus is not a person. But again, the burden of proof is on you to show that it's not. And the way you do that is you take one of these and you throw it in here and think that automatically gets you there. But that's not an inference, because the only way that's an inference is because what you're trying to do here is show that this stuff, all this stuff, trying to show because the burden of proof is on you. That's why all they try to do is switch the burden of proof, make the victim the woman. Because if they can do that, they just completely flip it. They're already assuming all of this. This is the pro-choice stance, guys. That all of this is morally justifiable because of these things. But that's not how it works. They have to do this first. They're skipping everything. But since they assume this, and they're doing that while talking to these guys, right? They're making it seem like this guy needs to do the inference across. They're acting like the pro-choice person or pro-life. They're acting like we have to take all of this and bring it back into the category. Backwards. But no, we're talking about the intelligibility of a fetus. We agree here. So why not this? And why not this? Don't all persons have moral rights? And aren't all persons human biological organisms? So I'm not saying this is right. I don't know. Maybe you do have a bridge. Maybe. That's why I accept every premise. But the only way to move it out of the category of person, everything in this category, this is morally unjustifiable. Killing a human biological organism at the start, because we're in here. So when they try to say not self-aware, since it is a human biological organism, you have to apply self-awareness, not having it, to all other humans that you consider to have moral rights. So what about someone on brain support? You have to apply your logic consistently. Is if the reason the fetus is allowed to be killed, if all this is morally justifiable, is based on this, then it's also okay to do that. You know, they'll call these edge cases, but it's not even accurate. So this is the pro-abortion stance. That's why I'm a mirror and I'm not even arguing with them. If we accept this move, they say, oh, the fetus is not self-aware, so I'm allowed to move it out of the category. It's morally justifiable to do this. Well, for me, my thinking is just, okay, I hear you saying this. Now I'm going to apply it to actual logic. And this whole thing is what lets me know this is required. That burden of proof, negative logic, you need an inferential bridge. No bridge, no conclusion. That's just using the shared rules of logic. So you tell me not self-aware, cool. Let me just apply it to the rules. The first question that automatically pops in my mind is this question. And then you throw it back to them. And all you're saying is, I'll accept this if that's really what you want to do. But as soon as we do that, these aren't questions anymore. It's the same thing. You have to concede that you're also saying this. It's also okay to kill newborns. It's also okay to kill people on life support. Because you're trying to take it out of the personhood category. Killing a bioorganism based on this general principle. That's the whole burden of proof on not. You're ever saying something's not. You need to then apply it across the entire board. And so, they have all these arguments, but they literally just come down to the exact same one over and over again. And if you just look at all of these, for every single one of them, you will find people who have moral rights that fit these categories. Every single one of them. And so you just recognize, is development an actual inferential bridge to get here? You're not saying they're wrong. You're just like, I don't see it. Can you tell me why this is morally justifiable? You have to provide a reason. You can't just say, well, it's not rational. That's it. You have to say why not rational is a reason to move it out of the category. That simple. So this is really the entire debate. And then, some of these scumbags literally think like, okay, we can't do this. They got us. So we'll just say the fetus actually is alive, is sentient in such a way where, it's a person. So like it's like tricking the pro-life side basically. And they're like, well, since it's a person, like a person shouldn't be allowed to like be in my body if I don't want it in there. But that's just right back to dependency. Just so many ways you can trap them endlessly. And so since I just stay here at the classification of the fetus and keep sending the mirror back, just like B-Rabbit, all of these cancel out because they cannot accept the costs of these. So once they concede that, like, no, I don't want to kill newborns, no, I don't want to kill people on life support, then these cancel out and they all go down. Until they blue screen. Because people don't change in conversation. They're still thinking this. They're still thinking this. But I'm a person and I'm saying stuff to them. And all I'm doing is saying, okay, agree with that. But then once we apply it to the right category, which is what we're talking about here, we all agree it's a human biological organism. So then you just take human biological organism is a person with moral rights. That's what they are. Not self-aware? What other persons with moral rights are self-aware? These guys? Okay. So then that kills everything else. And you're left just with this. And when you're left just with this, all you're going to do is go backwards. This is not the actual formula. This is their formula. All about not logic, negative logic. This is their true mindset. They've already decided this is this without doing this, right? So then their formula changes. We're the victim. You guys, you have to say why it's not. Oops. Once you've already stipulated this, the fetus is not a person, then of course it's like all you're doing at that point, us, is being like, You shouldn't have control of your body. That's against your rights. So what they're trying to show is they literally just changed the debate. Completely changed the debate, and that's not the foundation. So the burden of proof is always on someone who's saying this is not happening, basically, in these debates. So that's what they're saying. The woman speaks first, or the pro-choicer speaks first, thinking they're using this, and they say, I'm the victim, because the fetus is already not a person with moral rights, just stipulating that definition. The definition is circular. It literally makes it so the fetus can never be considered a person based on all that not logic. But the not logic, as you saw, the negative logic, literally never moves the fetus out of the category. They know that, so they switch the formula and just say, yep, we're the victim. And that means you need to show you why I cannot get an abortion. Because a woman, of course, body rights, she absolutely does. So they're sending it back at you being like, show me the bridge where you move me here. Show me that. And the pro-lifer is just like, this is what we say, right? We're like, what do you mean? Like, the fetus is a person with moral rights. So, yeah, I mean, but we're not even saying this. But they are the ones who establish it this way. You need to show why I don't have rights for my body. Which, so when we say this to them, they'd be like, you're saying that because you think, just because you think the fetus is a person with moral rights, that I don't have rights for my body? You can't move me out of this category for that reason because I think the opposite based on a definition. And this is all about the morality of me. The burden of proof is on you to show me why I don't have moral rights for my body. So anytime we try to do this, the woman just goes, no, 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 I'm back here because of this. And so every time it's their turn, they just flip it into this new image that I've drawn. Two completely different debates. Which is why a pro-lifer needs to maintain the line and show clearly that the burden of proof is on the other side to move the fetus out of that category. Because this whole thing, this whole image is downstream of the classification of the fetus. And this whole thing is based upon a stipulation, a definition that removes the initial intelligibility of this formula. And the only way you're allowed to break this formula is if something steps in between these equals and justifies that inference. Like equals person equals moral rights. It's like, wait a second. Before we get to abortion is murder, they're not self-aware. You're breaking the formula. Then as we saw, as I played out, is you apply that in the right category across all persons and it all falls down and they blue screen. That's the start of this whole thing. That's why this happens. This changes. Because if you can transfer the victimhood over to you, then you rhetorically flip the burden of proof and then you just stay there and you just never move from there. That easy. Completely backwards. I'm a little rusty with the whiteboard. Hopefully you guys like that. This is the first thing to all hail Babylon. The first one. This is going to be a whole series. I'm going to be posting conversations, posting essays, taking down people's articles. And I promise you, all you're going to see is that development and dependency chain over and over again. And you're going to see people blue screen against me over and over again because there is no bridge. Draw me the circle. No one can. Human rights violation.